So then perhaps other mayors might be motivated is because I always had a deep, deep feeling that I must be, since I was the first public official of Greek descent, of Greek heritage, born in Greece, who was elected mayor of San Francisco, that became worldwide news at the time, I owed future generations my full allegiance. And I thought that by doing the right thing and working hard and doing what I suppose would be a sort of a role model type of situation, I exerted myself more than perhaps others. And as a result, I think today any Greek that runs for office will not have it said of him like it was said of me, no Greek can be elected. Now they know that a Greek can be elected if he conducts himself in the proper way, in an honest way. And that's what I try to do. And as a result, when the New York Times and Fortune magazine praised my administration, they didn't know that they were praising me only. They were praising my Greek heritage, which was my total purpose in doing what I did.
The Giants baseball team became the San Francisco Giants. Is this one of your biggest accomplishments, Mayor?
It was considered at that time a big accomplishment bringing the Giants to San Francisco from New York. Everybody thought it was impossible to get the Giants to move from New York. But I was back there talking with the Giants owner, Horace Stoneham, who indeed was a very fine gentleman, a real baseball man and a gentleman in every way. And one day in the polo grounds, I was speaking with him, and I gleaned little bit by little bit that he was not too happy with New York. He said, if only I had 10 or 12,000 parking spaces. Well, I said, how can you possibly get 10 or 12,000 parking spaces in New York City? That would be worth billions of dollars, the parking space, because you need 76 acres. He didn't even realize that we needed 76 acres of land in order to create that many parking spaces. I brought him out here, and the only place that we could find that had enough space to accommodate 10 or 12,000 parking spaces was Candlestick Point. And it's also the cheapest land we could get, because Candlestick only cost a total of $11 million.
How do you rate the Golden Gateway?
Well, frankly, the Golden Gateway has never been conceived as a major or as big an accomplishment as the Giants. Everybody thinks bringing the Giants here was the biggest accomplishment of all. I don't think so. I think the Giants come second, as important as they are. But I think the Golden Gateway, that, to be explicit, the Golden Gateway means that area where the old produce market was, Battery Street and Sansom Street. That's where the old produce market was. And they had rodents running loose down there out in the middle of the street. And I took a poll, and the poll showed that the total tax revenues on real estate in that area was $500,000 a year. So I got the Rockefellers and the Blythezilla Back Committee and the biggest people in town, my good friend Walter Haas, who was head of Levi Strauss. They put up $5,000 each to make a study, and found out that if we developed that area, we would have a new tax base. And the reason I wanted to have a new tax base was because if we increased the taxes in that decrepit area, only $500,000 a year, now one building pays that much. But here's what it does. It eliminates, or rather alleviates, the tax burden of the residential area, Sunset, Parkside, Richmond District, all those areas, as a result, are paying less taxes than they would be paying if we didn't have the Golden Gateway.
You transformed, you changed that area.
I transformed that all the way from Sansom Street down to the ferry building. Down to the ferry building. And then, when I got that done, I said to myself, if we can do this, we can also do it with the old decrepit area in Japantown. Japantown, don't forget now, this was right after the war practically. And right after the war, all these buildings had been run down. So we brought in financiers to renovate the Japanese area. Japantown now is a very wholesome place, if you ever go out there. But by comparison to what it was many years ago. And that's bringing in more revenues too. And that's the very essence of stewardship. That's the very essence of administration. To get the maximum revenues possible in an environmental type of area. And that's why I think we were able to get these things done. But before you can do that, you have to bear in mind that the mayor, whoever is the mayor, has to win the confidence of the big investors, of the business people, of the community. They have to trust you. And they trusted me, you see. Before I did this, the previous mayors for the last 40 or 50 years had been trying to renovate the produce market. But every time they fell down because the produce market property owners didn't want to move at that time. But finally, little bit by little bit, casually, I was able to convince them. And today, that area is a good, wholesome area. And also a great advantage for the taxpayers of San Francisco.
Can you talk a little bit about the garages that you built in San Francisco?
Well, the garages were built in order to sustain the downtown area. For instance, the Fifth and Mission garage, the Portsmouth Square garage, the St. Mary's garage. All these garages were built to accommodate the shoppers downtown. Because if we didn't have these garages, then the major department stores downtown were threatening to move out. And if they moved out, that would desecrate Union Square. And Union Square is the highest yielding tax base that we have in San Francisco. And if we lost any one of those major department stores, then we'd be in serious trouble. But by building these garages, we were able to keep them, and they're all paying for themselves. They're doing well. As a matter of fact, they're self-sustaining. They're profitable.
How about the BART system?
Well, BART was a different story again. BART was set up by the state, but we had to have 5 counties participating in the revenues to build BART. BART cost $750 million. And the 5 counties were to be San Francisco, Alameda County, Contra Costa County, Marin County, and San Mateo County. And so we found out that Marin County and San Mateo County didn't think they had enough revenue to sustain it, and they didn't participate. And only San Francisco, Contra Costa, and Alameda became involved. But then I found out the last minute that Contra Costa County was dubious because the supervisors, there were 5 supervisors there, only 2 were for it, 2 were against it, and 1 was on the fence. He wouldn't say whether he was for it or against it, but he was leaning to be against it. Imagine, this was a $750 million project, and it depended on one man's vote, whether it goes on the ballot or not. So finally, in desperation, I said, Supervisor, his name was Joe Silva, a very fine fellow, but he had his ways. I said, Mr. Supervisor, I said, whether you vote for this project now or not, someday it's going to be built. No question about it. It's going to be built. Only if it's built 5 or 10 years hence, it'll cost not $750 million. It's going to cost $1 billion, $1.5 billion, maybe $2 billion. And I said, when that happens, the people of that era will reflect on why it's costing $2 billion. And they will say that because we had a supervisor named Joe Silva who didn't respond at the time when it was right, we have to pay that much more money. But I said, if you vote now, to put it on the ballot now, and give the people a chance to vote for it, that's what I'm asking. I'm not asking you to be for it, but I'm asking you to give the people a chance to vote yes or no. Then if it's built, people will say, your own constituents will say forever after, thank God we had a forward-looking, constructive supervisor who voted this at that time and thus saved us a lot of money. Well, I could see him then in a very quizzical mood. So he was kind of weakening a little bit. And I said, Don, you want to be a hero or you want to be condemned forever? I said, I'm here to convince you that you should be a hero because you deserve it. You're a good man. Well, and he was a good man, too. So he went back and he voted to put it on the ballot. But it was a tough go.
President Eisenhower, he referred to you as one of our great Americans. To what do you attribute this?
Well, I'm not one of our great Americans. I think anybody who lives in this country has to be a good American. But I had a dual responsibility. Everything I did, I had in mind the children who are coming after me, the new generation of Greek Americans. And I see them now in their professions and their daily lives. I'm proud of them. And all I was trying to do was to be a good American, because by being a good American at that time, I think I was paving the way for our young people who were coming after me. Yes, I was a pioneer, politically speaking. And I think pioneers have a responsibility. I think pioneers have to be role models. I think they have to conduct themselves in a way that the young people will look up to with some respect. And all during my administration, I never had one single word of dissent or a single word of lost faith, because, again, as I said before, my Greek heritage was always in the back of my mind. And I'm glad that I was brought up that way. Back in the old days, after school, in our grammar school days, school would end at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. My poor father and mother, although they didn't have any money to spare, nevertheless paid something every month to the school, the Greek school, and from 3 until 5 in the afternoon, we were in their special Greek school, learning all about 1821, learning all about Plato and Socrates, and learning how to speak Greek, and learning how to respect the Greek customs and heritage. And I think a mayor who becomes a mayor, a public official who achieves the office of mayor, in those days, you could have wagered $1 against $1 million that no Greek could become the mayor of this city, you see. But all these years, I had in my mind the fact that I was brought up this way, not to my credit, to the credit of my father and mother, and also to the credit of the Greek community that established these schools in those days and taught us the principles of Hellenism as we know it today.
As mayor now, did you appoint any Greeks to positions?
Oh, goodness, yes. I appointed Dr. Angel, for instance, to the Fire Commission. I appointed Nick Loomis to the Health and Welfare Commission. I appointed John Offendris as the bandmaster, music master of San Francisco. I appointed Dr. Anastasiou as physician for the fire department. And I had a half dozen others. I appointed Peter Tamaris, who served on the Board of Supervisors, despite the big hue and cry at that time about who I should appoint. I had a lot of applications, but I said, no, I'm going to appoint Tamaris, and I appointed Tamaris. And so I had the opportunity of trying to carry on this so-called tradition that we speak of. I had a letter yesterday from Sarbanes about a few things, and we correspond. But he's a very able fellow. He's a Democrat, a very ardent Democrat, but I don't go by that. I don't care if a man's a Democrat or a Republican. I do care if he's a good man who perseveres, who cares from where he came from. And when I see people like that, who care where they came from and want to uphold their heritage, I respect them. And Bradamus and Sarbanes and Olympia Snow. And now we have 5 or 6 congressmen in the Congress of the United States. And they're all doing well. And we should encourage other young men and women too to sometimes accept the challenge of a public service. And this, provided they maintain this great aura of integrity. I don't want to see anybody go in there just to better themselves. I want them to go there for the purpose of bettering the community at large. Now, for instance, we have Lou Papin now, who is in public office. He's experienced. I know he'll do well. I have a high respect for Nick Petras, who served Alameda County for many years, I think 25 or 30 years. But I have a special regard for Senator Petras because he follows the tradition that I've spoken about many times again. He never did forget where he came from, where he emanated from. And as a result, I think he's been a better man for it, too. The idea is, let's do the best we can to solidify our community in a way that we can work together, cast hatred out of the wind, cast the hatred out of the window completely, and strive to make this a better city and a better world for the young kids, the young ladies and gentlemen, I should say, who are coming.
Mayor, I have the last question for you. You have lived a good life, a full life, long and successful career. What kind of advice do you have for the young people watching this?
Well, the only advice I can give, and I don't know if I'm qualified to give advice, but I give it anyway, whether they want it or not, because I've had some experience. I want them to be good American citizens, first of all. Our young ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud of them, really. I don't know of a single young person that I'm not proud of our Greek heritage. I want them to know that I'm very proud of them because they do emulate, I think, the thoughts that have been uppermost in our minds, not only through me, but from the time our old timers came over from the old country back in the early 1900s. All the time and most of the Greeks who came over from the old country in those days came with the idea of going back soon, going back to the old country. But they didn't do that. They remained here and as a result raised wonderful families. I want these fathers and mothers to be proud of their children, and I want the children to be worthy of the pride that their fathers and mothers showed to them. And the only way I can tell every young lady and gentleman of Greek heritage in San Francisco, all over the nation, all over the state, if they achieve any type of responsibility, public responsibility, work hard. When you're a little older, you won't know you worked hard, but you will have achieved another stepping stone, one stone after the other. And if you achieve public office, don't be deluded that a fast dollar is going to help you. It won't. It'll destroy you. Fast dollar will destroy every politician who ever went into politics. And I always said to myself, I must not do anything that will embarrass my Greek constituency. And by doing this, I found that also I was not doing anything that would embarrass my total constituency. Because when you're proud of your Greek constituency, then you're also rendering a service for the entire community. And I just want my young ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud of them, to maintain that heritage. And above all, I say to them whenever I have the chance, I don't care what success you meet, how high you attain in life, don't forget where you came from. Just don't forget where you came from. That's important.
Mayor, thank you very much
Well, thank
for
you.
giving me this opportunity.
Thank you.
Great experience.